y'all. So PTSD Awareness Month is June. Post-traumatic stress disorder awareness, that is. I've already dropped a couple videos on PTSD, so if you haven't watched those videos yet, I encourage you to watch those because I drop a lot of knowledge and things that you may or may not know about post-traumatic stress disorder. But today, in lieu of everything that's going on, I felt like it was a perfect opportunity for me to re-engage, redo a video that I've done on my Facebook Live a couple years ago. And that's PTSD in the Black community, specifically kind of how we desensitize ourselves unknowingly to trauma. So as always, I'm going to drop some statistics, some facts, some journals, some articles. I'm going to, give my opinion on some things. I'm going to drop some new terms for you. Some things you may or may not know. Some things you may know about. And I'm going to discuss a couple of things that's happened over the past few years that you may have remembered or may not remember that, cause triggers or things like that. So let's just dive into this video. So African Americans, Asian Americans, and Native Americans report experience of trauma fewer times than European Americans and Latin Americans. But they are more likely to experience trauma or PTSD after traumatic experience than European Americans and Latin Americans. So like I said in a lot of my videos about mental health in general, African Americans typically, but minorities typically don't report it. Doesn't mean they don't experience things like mental health or PTSD. We just have a hard time of reporting it. Why? Because things like pride, our friends or family members, they in the past, because now mental health has become a bigger thing. They used to belittle our experiences, belittle our mental health, but hopefully now there'll be a change and people will report things more and get the help that they need. Adult African Americans are 20% more likely to report serious psychological distress than adult white Americans. Also, adult African Americans living below the poverty line are 3 times more likely to report serious psychological distress than those who are living above the poverty line. And that kind of can show like where you live and the money that is in the community makes a difference of what you experience, what you see, what you go through, what you witness. Adult African Americans are more likely to have thoughts of sadness, helplessness, and worthlessness. Woo, these some words. Sadness, helplessness, and worthlessness than adult whites. And with that being said, a lot of times we're the group that typically keeps things to ourselves and we don't report things to our friends or family members and things like that. Adults are less likely than whites to attempt suicide as teenagers, African Americans are less likely to die from suicide as teenagers, but are more likely to attempt it as teenagers. So again, it's not saying that we are less likely to experience things because it's not being reported. A lot of times we're more likely to experience things, it's just not reporting or we're not successful. So talk to your kids, talk to people in your area, talk to the teenagers around you, people that you surround yourself with, because there are people who are kids that are committing or attempting suicide and it's not being reported in the area. It's not being reported to their family members. I am one of those people. I attempted suicide as a teenager because of the things that my parents were going through. And I told my mom after the fact, but luckily I was unsuccessful. So now let's talk. I'm going to kind of switch the subject. So all of the things that African Americans experience has a term. So in 2017, there is a term that was coined for Black Americans specifically who experience post-traumatic stress. It's called race-based traumatic stress. Where does this come from? Why do they call it this? It comes from enduring repeated exposure to traumatic experiences in person and in social media. So this is coming from racial harassment, racial violence, and systematic racism. And institutionalized racism. Lord, these some words. I'm gonna get these words out though. Okay, so the DSM-5, big thing in the psychology world, they recognize race-based traumatic stress. However, it's not a disorder. So the fact that it's even recognized means that it's a real thing and it, is happening in our communities. So what are some symptoms? The symptoms are similar to PTSD, but again, it's specific to Black Americans because it's race-based. So it's irritability, hypervigilance, and depression. Now, I will say all this to say, not everybody experiences this because not everybody is exposed to the same types of things and not everybody witnesses the same types of things. So some people that have experienced murders, homicides, seen somebody, you know, have walked in on a dead body, have seen somebody being jumped, things like that. Some people have never experienced that. Some people have been shot. Some people have not been shot. Some people have seen drug deals. Some people have seen high-speed chases. And to them, that's the normal. And then some people have not. So, let me switch it back. So, the thing about it is it also comes from social media. We desensitize ourselves from things that we see on social media. So, Eric Caney and Mike Brown. Those are two 17-year-olds that you may or may not remember their names, but they both were murdered. Were they on video? No. However, Mike Brown, his body was, both of their bodies laid out on the streets. Mike Brown's murder happened in August, I believe, of 2014. I was actually in Ferguson, St. Louis when that happened. So I remember what was happening during, you know, that day. And people were calling in and they were like, his body is laying on the street. You can see the pool of blood draining down the street. And it was multiple people calling the radio station saying this. That's a traumatic experience. Like, there are elders out there watching this, there's kids watching this, there's, you know, young adults, whoever, and they're watching this man's body laying there. They had a sheet over his body. However, nobody should see a body, like a covered body with a pool of blood coming down it in the middle of the summer. That's completely traumatic. Same thing with watching Eric Garner and Tamir Rice. Those are, again, names that you may or may not remember, but both of their murders were on, like, they were social medialized, if that's a word. But you can see their murders. Philando Castile and Alton Sterling. Those both happened in 2016. And I unfortunately saw the videos because this is before the filter came on Facebook and Instagram for you to uncover videos. So Philando Castile, if you don't remember, he was in his car. He got pulled over and the cops shot him. His child was in the back seat. His fiance or wife was in the front seat. And they shot this man point blank. And that traumatized me. And the last video that I unfortunately witnessed a murder was Alton Sterling. I can't remember why he was, you know, apprehended by the police, but he was shot. He was laying on his stomach and he was shot in his back point blank. I lied to you not. I was at work. This is when I was in the Army. I was at work scrolling, and in the time it took me to scroll my finger up the page, I saw his murder. And it ruined my whole day, and I will never forget watching that. So I absolutely cannot witness another murder because I am still sick from something that happened 4 years ago. So seeing the Ahmaud Arbery murder being displayed and the George Floyd, I cannot watch that video. And I don't know about you, but I see it all the time on my timeline. People are sharing the video. I don't need to see it. I read the facts. That's all I needed to see. And there are other people who are just like me, that causes trauma to them. So the thing about it is kids nowadays are being more exposed to death than we are. And unfortunately, their brains don't develop. Their brains are still developing. So it causes a substantial psychological, it causes damages, lasting effects on psychological development in youth because they're experiencing trauma. And African Americans, amongst above all other groups, are constantly living in a state of trauma. What is trauma? Trauma is an emotional wound that causes physical changes to the body. So like I explained in my video about stress, stress causes physical or psychological, social, it causes changes in your bodies. And trauma is one of those things that has a lasting effect. So what am I saying? I'm saying we need to, I guess we could say, change how we're doing things or change the narrative, because it's unfortunate that these things are going to keep on circulating, because murders and racism and things like that are not going to stop in our community. But it's a difference of how we share these things. I swear I thank the Lord that they have made those filters for you to uncover videos where they block these murders. But yes, these things need to be shared, but there probably needs to be a different approach, because it is like making an effect on us mentally, where we are just depressed and down and sorrowful. And the thing is, we don't have to know these people for these things to have an effect on us, because as a human, you shouldn't be watching a murder. Like, seeing a murder is a traumatic experience that causes PTSD. And the thing I talk about a lot is we downplay, in the black community, we downplay things that are traumatic. Seeing somebody getting jumped or being jumped is traumatic. Seeing a fight is traumatic, because you don't know what the effect can be. You can die from a fight. Seeing high-speed chases is not cool. Like, that is a traumatic experience, especially if somebody's been in a car accident. Having your friends being shot at or being shot, like, I know countless times going to parties and they were shooting out parties, and I have friends who have never ever been shot at or been close to a fight, or seen their parents being, you know, in domestic violence, or being a victim of domestic violence. All of these things and more happen a lot of times in the black community, but it's downplayed or joked about, and it's scary. Like, being a victim of domestic violence is a very, very, very traumatic thing, and is downplayed for men and women, especially men in the black community. I'm gonna do another video, because I don't want to make this video 20 minutes long, and I'm probably gonna just talk about black men's mental health, because a lot of times with different things like domestic violence or just violence in general, or experiencing things, black men are seen to have to be, you know, the strong humans, but in actuality they have feelings too. And black women, honestly, because we're coined with the word being strong, where you are a human. Like, you are a human, so you're gonna have responses that you cannot control. Now, I hope that you watched this whole video, because I know I said a lot of a mouthful, and I know I said a lot of the different things, and I know I talked pretty fast, but I hope that you watched this video in this duration. You will see more videos on this topic soon, because it's a lot going on. Hopefully you liked this video. If you did like it, please like it. As always, please share my videos if you liked it. If you didn't like it, maybe you can share it to somebody else on your timeline, or your family members, or whoever will learn something from the videos. Please comment if you like this. If you like this content. I'm so excited. Like, I need to slow down. Please comment if you like the content, and subscribe if you haven't subscribed already, and get that little notification so you can hear or see whenever I drop a new video. And I hope to see your notifications of your likes and your comments and all that soon, and I'll see you in my next video.